Hey there YouTube, AJ here. A couple weeks ago I pulled this F1 crossmember out of a truck frame in the woods, and today I'm going to be modifying it to fit into the Model A frame of my 27 Ford hot rod. So what that means is this thing is basically 3 inches too long and about 2 inches too wide here to fit into the frame of my Model A frame. So it has to be narrowed, it has to be shortened, and I want to rework it so it slides into the frame and still has like these mounting tabs and this flange here, so it'll be structurally pretty much the same, just a little bit smaller and narrower. Along the way we'll be filling up all these holes because we'll have to move our brake pedal holes and maybe making some new holes, you know, so we'll see what we got going. So the first thing we got to do is determine the width that we need. Okay, so I had this center chunk of an F1 crossmember that I've mocked up into my transmission mount and other pieces here, and I've never been happy with it. That's why I want to replace it. I don't like the look of it in general. If we come up top and we look inside, the back edge of that crossmember is up against the front edge of the stock Model A crossmember, and this is bolted to that and welded, tack welded, but blah blah blah. So the back edge of our F1 crossmember needs to be this width up here, and because the frame tapers, the front part of it needs to be this width up here. So we got to determine that. So we put our tape measure, and this is going to be a little messed up because we got this piece in the center. We can't measure dead on. We measure out to the edge of the frame. We're at like 30 1/4 at the back edge, and then at the front edge that should be more narrow, and we're like at 30. Now I'm measuring the outside of the frame rail to the outside of the frame rail, so we'll also need to, because the new crossmember is going to be inside the frame rail, we'll have to take off the thickness of the frame rail itself, which is 3/16 of an inch. So we got to take off 2 3/16 of an inch, which would be 3/8. Yeah. So at the back of it, we'll want it to be 30 1/4 minus 3/8. We want it to be 29 7/8, and at the front, we want it to be 29 5/8. No, it was 30. Yeah, 5/8. Okay, I double checked my math, got our widths down. Now to put our marks on here, we're going to take our overall width at the point here. We're not going to measure this flange in it, so we're going to take it right here, and we are at 32 5/8. We got to subtract our new measurements out of 32 5/8, because this is the same measurement front and back, right? Yep. So 32 5/8 minus 29 5/8, that gives us a difference of 2 inches? No, 3 inches. That's at the front edge. So we want to come in, take that 3 inches, divide it by 2, because we want to come in from each side 1.5 inches. Now on the other one, we have 29 7/8 at the back edge. We want to subtract that from 32 5/8, and that would work out to be 2 3/4. Divide that by 2, 1 3/8 at the back. So basically we're going to have like a slight taper front to back, over like 1/8 of an inch overall. So we set our square 1.5 inches, scribe it at the front on each side. Hang on. Let's drop this into the table for one more second. stable platform here. Then do the same thing again, but set it at 1 3/8. And quite honestly, I could probably cut this square and it wouldn't matter, but I'm trying to make it as tight as I can. It'll probably come back to bite me and be too tight, but you know. Now if we connect those two, connect it over here. Alright, so now we got our cut marked down. We need a bend line. Okay. The next thing we need to do is measure the inside height of our frame, and then so we can mark out how tall this is going to be, because we're going to have to cut out a bunch down here. And I just went and measured, and that works out to be just a shade less than 3 5/8. So from the top of this, which we're going to be leaving whole, we're going to come down 3 5/8, and that's how tall we're going to be, and that's where we're going to cut across the bottom. Okay, skipping ahead, you can see, let me bring you in closer here, and hopefully you can see what I've done. So on each side, what I've done was, we got our end of the frame mark here, we have our height of the frame here, so we need to cut this here. This dotted line will be how far in the end of the cross member will sit into the frame. And then this out here is going to be our tab, like here, to bend forward. So the next thing we want to do is, so like this piece here is going to go away because we don't want this tab to be super tight to the frame. So we're going to drill holes in these corners on both sides, so we have a rounded place to cut to. And then we'll cut this out, this part up here out, and this part down here out. Then I went ahead and I roughed in the shape that I'm going for. This will insert into the frame, and then we'll take this section here with the 3 X's on it, we'll cut that out. We'll slice down this line here, and then once this piece here is removed, we will bend this up back to this line, and this whole bottom flange will be retained, and then we'll weld it back together up here, and then bend this tab out, and then the cross member should theoretically slide in to the frame, and everything should line up. Once we've done all of that, we'll also take and weld up all these holes. Our brake pedal mount on this side, it's going to come into about here, and then with the hole here in the center, right here. So it's just moving it over a little bit because our frame is narrower than the F1 frame. So in theory, it's all marked out, so we can start cutting. But before we do that, I want to drill the aforementioned holes here first before we cut. And there was something bolted here, so we're going to get rid of that. And I'm probably going to drill a hole there, and holes in the bottom of this, because if you look in here, you can see where crap sat in there and ate away. So I want to try to avoid that. I think the metal will still be strong enough after I put my holes in it and get rid of this, but if not, we may have to repair this piece altogether. So if I punch those holes here and I decide later I have to repair it, fine, it's not going to be that big of a deal. But yeah, let's get to drilling holes first. Okay, well that was a sight to be felt. Whew. So, I don't know if you could tell in the time lapse, but I struggled. Started off as drilling the holes out so I could use my hydraulic punch, and it started out that my 1/2-inch cordless drill that I use, battery was dead, so I had to switch to other drills. They were a pain, and then eventually to make a big enough hole, I tried to use this 1/2-inch drill with a wood bit on it in steel, and well, my shoulder paid the price. It grabbed and ripped my shoulder. It hurts. So that was fun. Then I got a big old blood blister on my finger. But I ended up switching to the smaller size arbor and punching smaller holes first, thinking I'd go to the bigger hole, which I did on the front here. But on the bottom, I like the way the holes are laid out. They look fine, and I think if I go too much bigger, it will affect the integrity. I think I'm going to leave it like that. And got two things going on. I got airflow that'll go through here and drainage holes in the bottom, so hopefully nothing will really get caught up in here and rot out this thing any further. And I think what's left of the steel in here is thick enough that it's going to hold. I think it'll be fine. If not, we can always replace it later. And I was going to dimple die this one at least, but the die won't fit in the channel behind here, so it's going to get left like this. That's all right. I'm okay with that. We also did drill out these corners, so the next thing we need to do is start cutting our openings. Okay, we got it all roughed into shape now. Got all our holes in it. Hopefully you can see now what I'm talking about. Where I cut this out, I'm just going to be bending and welding it up to here, and reusing this part, and then this end in here will be inside the frame rail. I went ahead and flattened out this tab that was already there. To make this as long as possible, I'm going to bend it right there forward. After we do that, when we go to fit it, we might need to cut this down, but I'm going to try to use as much as I can on here and keep it as long as I can, just for added strength. We got to bend these tabs up and then start welding things. Before we go any further, I'm going to start cleaning this off while I still have better access to the backside especially. And once we get that cleaned off, we can start working it into shape. We're going to see if we can start getting our bend in this thing. It's cleaned up, and I was afraid of that. Now what? Okay, well, my vise isn't deep enough, and I was afraid of that. So my options are to cut some off this tab or come up with a different way. So we're going to choose a different way. All right, so the idea is we're just going to start the bend over that. So hopefully we can hold this straight enough and hammer this over the edge of the steel enough to at least get us started. Turn this a little bit. There we go. Let's have a look. Barely get it onto my bench. That wasn't too shabby. All right, reline her up. Another whack. And repeat this a few times. I think we're about at the end of our row. And we're hitting the vise. Now, can we do that again? Oh, I just love the sound of shit falling everywhere. All right. Well, that's a start. Okay, now that we got it started, we can switch to our taller piece here of, this is like 1/2 inch plate. I needed it shorter in before to get control of it. But now, I think, hopefully I can use this to get it all the way. Not happy. Losing my edge. There's an idea. Let's get a clamp. All right, got it in the clamp here. I think this will work. All right, that's good. Got to move to this side here. Get our clamp. Should have started with this one. This was the way to go. Shaping metal without proper tools. Ha! Take that. Okay, we're mostly into shape now. We have our width, we have our height, we have our flanges out forward, and the last thing we need to do before we can start welding stuff is start bending these pieces down to meet here. It shouldn't be too tough. All right, we're already pretty good right there, but the problem is I need to weld it as I go in order to get it to stay in shape. See, obviously we're going to have to weld it down and then bend it up to get it to meet the curve. Let's get this side. That's looking pretty good. I think it's close enough now that we can start the welding. Okay, we're all set up here to start welding. We're going to start tacking this together. We've got it pressed down so it's pretty solid all the way an inch to 1.5 inches. So I'm going to put a tack right here about at 1.25 inches. Hopefully that'll hold it all together. Then we'll weld that part and then we'll just keep working our way down. Okay, now we've got it welded down through here. I got to touch up a couple spots. I got some gaps, but you can see down here this flange is now down below here, so we got to bend this part back up so it's flush with this piece. Okay, I think I've got it all welded pretty good. I went ahead and welded it from the backside just to make sure, since this is going to be, you know, pretty structural. We'll clean that up in a minute, but first I want to fill a bunch of holes and get rid of those. And then over here on these corners here, there's like a little triangle cut out, so I'm going to cut a piece to go in there. So I'm going to cut all my pieces for this stuff. Okay, well, I changed my mind. I didn't make individual plugs for the smaller holes. I just took a little piece of copper plate, clamped it to the backside, and just filled them with welding wire. So on the bigger holes though, that's not gonna really work. So I made these couple of hexagons just because I was too lazy to cut it round and perfect. And I'm just gonna tack those in to position. And then I'll use the copper plate to fill the gaps. So that's up next. Well, there we have it. We have one F1 Ford crossmember modified to fit in a hot rod Model A chassis. We hope. Hasn't been fit yet. So hopefully my measurements, my cutting, my calculations, all that was correct and this thing will fit. Although we're not going to do that right now because I have to travel for work again. By the time you see this though, I'll be back, be working on this again. I did pick up a new old stock F1 transmission mount to go with my transmission in there. That will go in there like this. My old one probably would have worked, but the rubber was pretty, it looked like it had expanded from all the oils and crap that had soaked up over the years. So I just decided to go ahead. I got a good deal on this, so I decided to go ahead and pick up a new one. When we swap this out, we'll swap that out as well. But overall, I know this isn't perfect. I didn't get this ground completely flush. I could have spent some more time on that. Maybe I will later when I go to, before I paint the frame and everything. But overall, I'm pretty happy with my design. And I think it's going to fit pretty good, I hope. I hope. But I like the way I got it built. I think it looks pretty good. It definitely looks, oh, I got paint drips on it, but it definitely looks a lot better than what's under it right now. So as long as everything fits, I think we'll be in good shape. But we won't know that until I get back and get time to crawl under here. And I'm gonna do it completely the wrong way. I'm gonna try to do it with the motor and transmission in situ. And yeah, I'm just gonna try to use my floor jack to hold the transmission up. Hopefully I can unbolt and knock the old one out, get this one slid in there, and everything will work. But until then, you know, all I can say is thanks for watching, and later, YouTube.